Sumerian and Egyptian Stargates discovered. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Rex Bear. How the heck are you? Anunnaki technology found peppered throughout the Middle East. This is absolutely incredible. What you are looking at right now is an image that was taken in the Middle East. And as you can see, those Sumerian guardians, one on the left, one on the right, definitely the Anunnaki beard, the archetype of these deities that were the demigods. They've been talked about through mythology and prophecy and scriptures for thousands of years, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. Somebody was talking to me today about how these Vedic texts that talk about the monkey tribes, the demons, the vampires, the giants, the blue people, all sorts of different colored people back then. Were they the Anunnaki? And do these texts, this person said those texts go back hundreds of thousands of years, and they've been retranslated various times. How far down the rabbit hole does this go? Now, the thumbnail, as you can see, the one image to the right, that is from the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is absolutely incredible. I am as fascinated with the Book of the Dead as I am with these Sumerian cuneiform tablets that I've been sharing with you guys here at the Leak Project. Let's take a look right now. This is a Sumerian cuneiform tablet. You can see the Pleiades cluster. You can see the crescent moon. You can see the winged disk. You can see the Sirius star. And you can also see this Stargate tree of life / antennae looking thing. Also, looks like there's the bull of Taurus there. And you can see one of the Anunnaki gods is standing on the bull, the cosmic bull here. Is this all just representation of the stars, or is it representation of the stars and the people that have specific titles and positions and connecting points? How far does it go? Well, I certainly feel there's something to this Stargate here. And if you look at this image right here, you can tell this is old school. You can also tell that it's got the Sumerian guardians. And then if you get into the Book of the Dead, this is an incredible passage that I want to share with you. It's one of the further spells. It's like spell 151A and 152, or you call them chapter, rite, passage, hieroglyph. Let me read this to you real quick. O rejoice, Seb, N. Now when you see that N in italic, that is divine source. That is their representation of God from the information that I've been able to gather. Like the highest, the deity that doesn't have a name or a label like these other gods. It's been set in motion with this vital power he has given to men and gods, their creative strength. There is cheering when it is seen that Sashate, I hope I'm saying that right, has come towards Seb, when Anubis has commanded to build a house on earth, the foundations of which be like On, and the circuit like Char-Abba. Let the God of the sanctuary be in the sanctuary. Now, let me take a time out here and go back to the N in italic. I don't see how Anubis would command the divine source of all. Maybe it's more of a fluid current, the N, like the power of God, the source of divine, not like the flow, the force, like the force. Maybe it's more in representation of the force, because I do not see anything commanding the divine providence of all. I mean, if anything, the divine providence would command everything else underneath it. So Anubis has commanded to N. Maybe that's more of like the Jedi fashion. Just in reference, if you watch Hollywood movies, if you watch some of those movies, you can reference the Force. Some people say use movies to reference. Some people say don't. It's easy for me because there's so many gems in there. So that's not the point. Let's just get back to this specific passage. and it's called The Chapter of Building a House on Earth. Wait until I show you the connections of what these look like in conjunction with the TARDIS from Doctor Who that travels time and space. It's going to blow your mind. It certainly has mine. This is incredible. And the sheshate is actually a representation of a 7-pointed star of the feminine aspect of Thoth or Thoth. Now I'm going to continue. I also decree that it should contain the sacrificial victim brought by slaves and held up by ministrants, said by Osiris to the gods in the following, come hastily and see the house which has been built for the glorified, the well-equipped, who cometh every day. Look at him, hold him in awe, and give him praise, which is well-pleasing to him. You see what I have done myself. I, the great God, who cometh every day. Look ye, Osiris brings me cattle, the south wind brings me grain, the north wind brings me barley. As far as the end of the earth, I have been exalted by the mouth of Osiris. Applause surrounds him on the left and on the right. Look ye, men, gods, and choose. They applaud him, and I am well pleased. Now, here's what's interesting. Now that I've read to you the translation, let's see what the actual pictures look like. Pictures say 1,000 words, and boom, there it is. The TARDIS right there. They're like, okay, let's go. Let's hop in. It's the TARDIS. Here it is. Look at that. Now, I would also like to give accolades to LePage Renew. He is no longer here in physical form, but he is the one that did the translations, and you can read these at Masiana.org. You can see here what they're going into. This looks like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. Is this representation of the house that's built on Earth for the netherworld, the possible transformation point? Chapter 152, the Book of the Dead. What do you guys think about that? Could this be symbolizing, literally, you go inside it, and it's a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Look at this. This is from chapter 147. Right, 147, the Book of the Dead. And guess where these things came from? Well, they came from burial cloth of some of these mummies, inscriptions for their protection to the netherworld. They were really into this stuff. And one thing that I find fascinating is how much they were into the mummification of the body. I feel that is the complete opposite of what you want to do. You know, the complete opposite. I think that's like artificial, and I think that takes away from natural source. Yet, in their eyes, in their minds, they looked at it at a completely different level. And maybe the reason this originated was because even in physical body, if they pass and later on they want to be reincarnated via cloning technology of their DNA, well, there needs to be a sample of their DNA to reconstruct it. And when you're on the other side, can you see your physical body decay? Do you see your physical, when you're in the netherworld, are you actually watching your body if you want to? Can you walk past the grave? Can you, if you're buried with formaldehyde, do you watch yourself slowly decay? And what happens when you finally do? Do you have to wait in purgatory until your body is finally completely released back into source because you're divided from it at that point? You're a fractal of a fractal, which we could completely be in some type of virtual network right now. We were talking about that earlier. There's plenty of evidence to point to a holographic type construct that we are residing in. Frequencies, algorithms, data sets, material, matter going in and out of dimensions. It's just bizarre. Sacred geometry, black matter, antimatter. Look at this right here. So look at these guys. You can see the TARDIS. You can see they're definitely in the Asana position. And you can also see this Stargate looking thing. And then you can see the boat here. Now let's take a look at this. The Osiris Stargate device. You can see this on williamhenry.net, and great website. Take a look at this hieroglyph. And you can see right here, you can see the different deities on the cosmic boat. But look at these on the left and the right, these wormhole looking, they look like two wormholes to me on each side that's connected to the cosmic boat. So you can literally, these guys learned how to go from one side of the galaxy to the other via Stargate technologies. The boat represents the cosmic, the stars, the cosmos, maybe the Milky Way, maybe the entire universe. Now, I'm giving my analysis on this. And also, in a minute, I'm going to share with you, I was way off on an analysis that I did recently on ISIS. So I need to correct myself on that. And I would like to thank the people that pointed that out in the comment section. We'll get to that in a moment. But if you compare this, let's scroll down a little bit and take a look at what's called the Osiris Stargate device. It looks like two wormholes, doesn't it? One's coming out on the left, one's coming out on the right. And, here's another image that shows what the wormhole effect looks like, computer animated. For a quick reference, this has got the symbol that I just shared with you that we talked about from the Book of the Dead, different deities. Then if you look at this Sumerian clay tablet that's thousands of years old, that looks like somebody's going into some type of door, some type of Stargate. And then if we take this back here, then we look at this again, then we look at this again, it certainly makes me wonder how much we're missing out. Stargate Atlantis, the Stargate series, how much of that was spot on? The original Stargate with Kurt Russell, excellent movie, fantastic film. And I'm thinking about these deities that would transfer their consciousness, and think of what they did in these pyramids and such. It would be much easier for these entities to travel the cosmos at a mental level versus jumping in a ship, filling it up with fuel and resources, and then taking off for millions of years while you're in some type of sleeping chamber so you don't age. Which would be more efficient? Traveling to any part instantly via portal, via Stargate technology, or traveling to the other side of the cosmos in a ship? And when you hear about, sometimes these people talk about intergalactic beings, entities they're not aliens, Rex, they're intergalactic, they're interdimensional. Well, they're probably both. So maybe these Anunnaki, instead of us worrying about them coming here in ships, wouldn't it be much easier for them to travel through Stargates? And then maybe what was left over from ancient Mesopotamia, that stuff needed to be cleaned up. What a better way to do it than start up the war machine and blow it to smithereens, make it disappear. Oh, we're just going in there for fuel and to get rid of weapons of mass destruction. We don't even know what a Stargate is. That's a conspiracy, son. You're crazy. These guys were probably traveling to these different dimensions and different parts of the galaxy, the Pleiades systems, the Hades system, all these different constellations via portals. And then that would be a much easier way for them to take over the area that they go to, versus the Star Trek, Star Wars, which I love Star Trek, I love Star Wars. I just feel that maybe these guys were doing it in a fashion that was even above and beyond the typical Star Wars type technologies. So you look at this stuff and you can see you've got the TARDIS looking, and the house that was built. This is chapter 147. We looked at the galactic plane, the galactic boat, the deities in the boat. Shared this with you. Here is another representation of the Stargate. This is most likely Horus, the hawk-headed deity. In the center, maybe that's in representation of Horus coming back from the netherworld. Now remember, if you read the Sumerian text, it talks about the 7 lesser gods, the Anunnaki gods, those that are overlooking the netherworld. Could that just be a different part of space in conjunction with when you pass this physical body? That's where you go at an energy level. And maybe that's why when they talk about Saturn and the possible moon matrix, the possible soul matrix cubes and stuff like that, the possible barrier around the earth that harvests souls, maybe there was some type of hijacking when these serpent deities that you don't see with your physical eyes took over many of these people in positions of high power. A lot of hijacking going on. A deity that can usurp up other people's energy source and life source as a form of vitamins or something like that, that has no remorse for lesser entities in his mind or its mind because of its abilities. It would look at many people as cockroaches or as a source of food, a source of energy, etc. Here is another interesting chapter. This is chapter 148 from the Book of the Dead, and you can see how there's many interpretations of the calf with the horns and the sun symbol, and then you've got the eye symbol, and then once again it looks like Horus. And you guys remember the other day when I told you about that hawk that was just hanging out in my tree? And it was just completely still, and it was huge. And the thing was just radiating energy. This is what I think of right here. Horus. How cool is that? So then, right here, chapter 150, these are the hieroglyphs that were discovered, not only ancient tombs, and wait until I tell you about the pharaoh where they discovered some of these incredible symbols, sigils. Some people call them sigils or sigils. It's called sigil from what I've heard many people that have studied the creation of these symbols of power for decades and know a lot more about it than me. So potato, potato, tomato, tomato. You will see here the 4 serpents, the 4 snakes. Could that be representation of the quad code of our DNA? Well, these guys have a different interpretation of it. That's just something that's coming to my mind. But this is, okay, so right here you can read the interpretation that Renew had. At the corner of the picture are 4 serpents, which I consider as the 4 cardinal points. The good Amenta, the gods within which live on shoes and on loaves. The garden of Aru, the god in it is Ra, the domain of the glorious ones. The high and lofty mountain, the basin, the fire, of which is a blazing flame. The front of the fire, the god in it is the bearer of altars. Amamhet, the god in it, is he who knocks down the fishes. So let's take a look at this for a minute. You can see there's a couple serpents, but they've got these interesting, like the Anubis type head. It's interesting. So I don't know what you guys take on that. Now let's go to chapter 151 here for a moment. You're going to see these bird people. You're going to see Anubis. You're going to see what looks like Isis. And I don't know if that's Thoth there as let's see here. Let's go down here. Kind of looks like Thoth because of the baboon head. Oftentimes Thoth has been represented with the baboon head. So you'll see that Anubis is getting ready, is helping the mummification of that entity going to the netherworld, to the other side. And then underneath, you see the bird. Underneath that, it looks like almost like roots or something. But it's like Anubis again, but it's reversed. And it looks like it's roots that go into the earth and then are starting to come out into the dirt, and then that comes out. So it's like the rebirth story almost. That's fascinating. And then we'll look at 151A. Here's another one of Anubis. And this one also is in a papyrus in London. This is a really neat one, I think, right here. But look at this right here, guys. You see how in these ancient hieroglyphics, beautiful pieces of art, you're going to see the bird people there. You're going to see the wane of the scales, Anubis being much larger than the people, and many symbols in the background. Well, look at this. Bingo. You guys think that this is evil? A lot of people I know say, man, Anubis is evil. Far from it. In my opinion, Anubis is one of the good guys. The representation people put on this deity and this archetype, because he is protector of the netherworlds, like the guardian of the netherworlds. I feel that he's been, his image has kind of been tarnished in many people's minds. Now, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. I will tell you this. I feel that the representation of Anubis out there at the Denver airport, he's guarding the underground facilities out there. He's guarding the underworld out there in Denver, the Denver airport. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that he could actually be watching over whatever it is that's underneath? And have you guys seen the images of Anubis traveling around the world? Saw some pictures where he was hanging out on a boat in front of the, where was it at? It was in New York City, Statue of Liberty. It was in front of the Statue of Liberty, or really close to the Statue of Liberty. I thought that was quite interesting. So Anubis hanging out. And then here you go. Here's another very interesting chapter, Book of the Dead, 153. You're going to see this symbol, this piece of art. Very old, very incredible glyph. And it looks like the monkey people that are talked about in the Vedas. Like this guy, Hanuman. Hanuman was a very powerful monkey man in the Hindu times that fought against the demons, against the vampires. And somebody sent me an email earlier about how these texts are thousands of years older than we're led to believe, than what the main scholars have dated them. Many of the mainstream scholars have dated them to be. So they could be hundreds of thousands of years old. And if you think about it, if there were battles of monkey people, maybe that's what they were looked at from these scribes that are coming here from another planet. Or maybe we were just monkey people at one point. Or maybe there were different tribes. I mean, maybe there were humans like us, and maybe there were monkey people, and maybe there were mermaids and mermans. I mean, geez, guys, who really knows? Especially with all this stuff that we find around the world, all these ancient relics of antiquity and artifacts and symbols and sigils and glyphs and hieroglyphics and petroglyphs, and it's all over. It's all over. So everybody's got a different spin. It seems like there's, you talk to 100 people, they've got 100 different ideas on what it could be. Sometimes there will be that resonance factor where people will have the same idea to an extent. It just seems like, how do we get to the truth, like, universal? How do we do that? I mean, how do we, find a way to just ask the Akashic records, this universal hard drive that we're in, were monkey people real? And be like, yes. When did they exist? 376,000 human years ago, according to the Grego calendar. I don't know. I mean, it'd just be neat if we could find a way to do that without having... And then people say, well, Rex, meditate about it. I do. And answers come to me. And then I start questioning the answers, and then I question that, and then I question that, and question that, and question, and question, and question. And you guys know how it goes. But isn't it interesting that Hanuman, just take away the A and the N, and you have human... a king among the Venera. Venera. It's an interesting... I'm not going to go there. Not going to go there. Chapter 154. This is another very interesting spell right passage in the Book of the Dead. You can see as this person is mummified, getting ready to go to the other side, transfer consciousness on a lion table, and then the sun above him absorbing his rays, absorbing his energy. That kind of freaks me out. I see stuff like this, and I'm like, man, does that mean that whatever deity is linked to the sun is absorbing all your energy like you're food for the sun right there? I don't want to be food for the sun. Just saying. Okay, so you look at this right here. Seshat. Seshat is the ancient Egyptian goddess, and the symbol of Seshat was discussed in the first chapter that I shared with you in the Book of the Dead. Not the very first chapter, but the first one that I discussed today. And it talked about this symbol, the goddess of writing and wisdom. I thought to myself, geez, that sounds just like Thoth. That sounds just like Thoth. Well, according to these relics, she is either the wife or the daughter or the feminine aspect of Thoth. And you can see the 7-pointed star above. There it is again. The feminine aspect that brought writing to the people, just like Thoth, just like Thoth. There she is again. And I was reading about the 7-pointed star recently. Could that be a connection to the Pleiades system? The 7 sisters, the 7 stars. Is that like the antenna, the symbolic representation of being from that area? I don't know. Here's another very interesting point. I talked to you, and this is from the first. Let's go back here to that specific. It was chapter 152. So if we go to chapter 152, okay, here we go. So Seb is Jeb. Jeb and Seb are the same. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Seb, I'm saving the best for last year. We're not quite at the end yet. Seb is Enki. Yes, that's right. Wait until I describe that in just a moment. So for those of you that were wondering who the Egyptian deity represents as Enki, it's Seb or Jeb. So, O rejoice, Enki, and has been set in motion with his vital power. He has given to men and gods their creative strength. And then there is cheering when it is seen that Seshat, that's the symbol, the 7-pointed star, the feminine aspect of Thoth that I just shared with you, has come towards Seb and Jeb, Enki, when Anubis, the protector of the netherworld, has commanded to end the flow, the chi, build a house on earth, the TARDIS, the Doctor Who vessel that travels time and space, the foundations of which be like On, and the circuit like Sher-Abeh. Let the God of the sanctuary be in the sanctuary. I also decree that it should contain the sacrificial victim brought by slaves and held up by ministrants. Now, I want to take a time out there. What the heck does that mean? So why does it need to contain a sacrificial victim brought by slaves and held up by ministrants? What does that mean? I don't jive with that, but maybe I'm missing something there. And just because I don't jive with it doesn't mean it's not right or anything else. I'm just giving you my personal opinion. Said by Osiris to the gods in the following: Come hastily and see the house which has been built for the glorified, the well-equipped, who cometh every day. Look at him, hold him in awe, and give him praise, which is well-pleasing to him. You see, what I have done myself, I, the great God, who cometh every day. Look ye, Osiris, bring me cattle, the south wind bring me grain, the north wind brings me barley, as far as the end of the earth. I have been exalted by the mouth of Osiris. Applause surrounds him on his left and on his right. Look ye, men, gods, and choose. Choose might be Hercules. I'm going to get to that in a moment. I found some very interesting connections of ancient cultures in connection with the stars, which I think you guys will find fascinating because it links up to the Sumerian stuff big time. They applaud him, and I am well pleased. So let's take a look again at the hieroglyphics. You can see it looks like the TARDIS. The TARDIS, there it is right there. You go inside and bang, something completely different. The TARDIS. Thing is awesome. Doctor Who, I'm not a big fan of this season, but love the series. We are the Daleks. We are the Daleks. Those dudes are freaky. You know, here it is again, the TARDIS, the Stargate, the galactic boat connected to a wormhole on each side. Travel through. Come inside. The show that never ends, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see right here, here is another image that I feel is in connection with the same thing we're just looking at in the Sumerian stuff. And I also feel this could be representation of Horus coming back from the netherworld, being reincarnated on the third day, the third night. There's again possibly Horus, Anubis. Now if we go back to, where are we at? The seven-pointed star. And this is Thutmose, or Thothmose the third, a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, where I just described to you one of the hieroglyphs. Many of the hieroglyphs were engraved in his burial covering for his mummification, as well as his areas around his burial, these protection spells. And guess what this means? This means Thoth is born. Thoth is born. So he was the sixth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. He reigned for 22 years, and officially he ruled for almost 54 years, from 1479 BC to 1425 BC. So I find this fascinating. And then once again, Jeb is Seb. I just talked about this. If we go back to that specific passage from the Book of the Dead, Jeb was the Egyptian god of the earth and later a member of the Aeneid of Heliopolis. He had a viper around his head and was thus also considered the father of snakes. It was believed in ancient Egypt that Jeb's laughter created earthquakes and that he allowed crops to grow. So you've got the serpents connected there. Yet viper around his head, considered the father of snakes. That makes me think of the snake versus the eagle, Enki versus Enlil, the god of the earth. I think that's a pretty cool connection there. So Jeb, I feel, is Enki, one and of the same. And here is, now it's time to get to the part that I wanted to share with you where I feel like I was way off, and there were some people that told me that. They're like, Rex, you were way off on this. And yeah, I was way off. So remember a couple weeks ago, I shared this image with you, and I said, I think that's Isis in the center absorbing all the energy. No. If you looking again, I can absolutely tell it's not Isis. Way off. Isis is on the left, so is Horus. In the center, it is not Isis. You can see it's clearly a guy. Now, never mind. I'm not even going to get into that. But Thoth is on the right, and then you can see above, that looks like the Thoth, almost like a Thoth head, that you'll see some of these ancient symbols of Thoth, of wisdom, being the baboon head. Well, let's take a look at this image right here. So do you see how he looks? It's like the same head. And yeah, he's definitely packing. And then he's definitely, he just got out of the pool, but you can tell there's something down there is what I'm saying. 4 arms. Then the wings. So then look at the head dressing here. But that head looks just like this one to me. We're pretty dang close. So this deity right here, it's as if there's like a ritual going on or some type of ceremony, obviously. But that is not Isis. Isis is to the left. And then Horus is to the right of Isis. And then Thoth is to the far right. Now I want to get into the Hades star cluster and the face of Taurus in the stars, because this is where you start connecting a lot of the dots with much of the astrology and many of these symbols and these plays and these poems and these rituals and these rites and these spells and these buildings and these locations and these temples. They're all connected to the stars. Why? Why is that? Wouldn't you think that There's probably something to it if they've been doing it for as far back as we can go. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's not necessarily evil. Maybe it's actually a way for them to harness specific energies. You know, how many times have we talked about the cosmic bull in these Sumerian texts? Could that be Taurus the bull? And also getting into Orion's belt, getting into the Pleiades system, getting into where everything's located, getting into the Hades system. I feel that this is all connected here. And maybe these different parts of the, different locations in the galaxies and such will go through different trials and tribulations. We will experience different energies and emotions and beings and lifespans, and we'll have a different reality in essence because it's a different level. Doesn't mean it's higher or lower, or does it? Maybe it does. Yet what does that actually mean to you? Is it in a linear fashion? Is it horizontal? Does it matter? So I appreciate you joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us. Have a beautiful day. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord. Also, leakproject.com. Here is the Pleiades system, which I feel is a big part of these Anunnaki stories, and maybe that's where we originally come from. Here's Sirius, the star Sirius. There's a good chance that that big star that's represented in these Sumerian clay tablets is connected to the star Sirius, one of the brightest stars in the galaxy that we know of. What about Orion's belt connected to the Egyptian pyramids, the pyramids of Mexico? The connections there, also in the clay tablets. What about this connection here, which is awesome? I would definitely pick up this book, ladies and gentlemen. Newton and the Origin of Civilization. I'm just going to read to you a little excerpt of this because I think this also connects a lot of mythos from different cultures with the planets. This is incredible, and subconsciously I think it's connected a lot of dots for me as well that I'll start to understand more here consciously here very soon. So let's go. An even broader conflict followed on the hills when Chuas, now remember, I talked about Chuas earlier in that Egyptian Book of the Dead quote, 152. That spelled that right. So Chuas, not content with his own inheritance, turned against Shem's family as well as against his own. For after he warred with a club in Egypt for the gods against giants, see, there's giants again, guys. Now, I showed you that Sumerian tablet that showed a giant, two giants, with humans being very small, and they had them wrapped like you would have a dog on a leash. They had humans on leashes, except for they were pulling it really tight, so you could tell they didn't give a crap. That was kind of spooky, actually. And then when I saw that, I thought to myself, I wonder how many giants were around back then, and I wonder how many battles there were of people of regular size versus these just huge giants. So let's get back to this. In Egypt, okay, so a club in Egypt, for after he warred with a club in Egypt for the gods against white giants, Chuas embraced the new technology of iron weapons in order to wage war upon the Egyptians and Canaanites. He conquered them in Y regions about Chaldea, and after expelling their inhabitants, Chuas became the first king of Chaldea. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Peopling in the country with the Arabian. Anyway, let's get down to the bottom part here. The outcome of the expedition, however, proved tragic. Chuas, Dionysus, had previously had a anyway, I'm having a tough time reading this. The font's a little bit too small for me. But what it's doing, you guys, is it's connecting the different planets with the different... Okay, so if you've got several kids, well, then they're going to connect. Here it goes right here. The firstborn children are Jupiter's and Juno's. And their strongest grandsons are Hercules. The fathers of the Saturns are the heavens, their wives are Rheus, and their wives of the heavens are Vestas. Therefore, there are just as many heavens, Vestas, Rheus, Junos, and Hercules, and there are Saturns. So they're connecting these people with the planets and representing them. Along these lines, then in Egypt, the birthplace of idolatry. Dang it, I'm having a tough time reading right now. Such small handwriting. Became known as Jupiter, Noah as Saturn, and Chuus as Hercules. So they're connecting these different names with the different Greek mythos, Sumerian mythos, Babylonian, Hebrew, Roman, etc. I think that's fascinating. And yeah, once again, this is definitely not ISIS in the center there. I apologize about that. Every once in a while, things go wrong. And thank you for being here with me, folks. Much appreciated. Have a beautiful day. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord if you haven't already. Also, leakproject.com. We have exclusive content on there. There's many podcasts at leakproject.com in the exclusive members section that is not available on YouTube. So for $10 a month or $50 for the whole year, you'll have access to that. Be excellent to each other. Question everything. Thank you to the mods for helping watch the chat room. And thank you everybody that joined me for this live show. Be the change you want to see. Sumerian and Egyptian Stargates discovered. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Rex Bear. How the heck are you? Anunnaki technology found peppered throughout the Middle East. This is absolutely incredible. What you are looking at right now is an image that was taken in the Middle East. And as you can see, those Sumerian guardians, one on the left, one on the right, definitely the Anunnaki beard, the archetype of these deities that were the demigods. They've been talked about through mythology and prophecy and scriptures for thousands of years, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. Somebody was talking to me today about how these Vedic texts that talk about the monkey tribes, the demons, the vampires, the giants, the blue people, all sorts of different colored people back then. Were they the Anunnaki? And do these texts, this person said those texts go back hundreds of thousands of years, and they've been retranslated various times. How far down the rabbit hole does this go? Now, the thumbnail, as you can see, the one image to the right, that is from the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is absolutely incredible. I am as fascinated with the Book of the Dead as I am with these Sumerian cuneiform tablets that I've been sharing with you guys here at the Leak Project. Let's take a look right now. This is a Sumerian cuneiform tablet. You can see the Pleiades cluster. You can see the crescent moon. You can see the winged disc. You can see the Sirius star. And you can also see this Stargate tree of life / antennae looking thing. Also, looks like there's the bull of Taurus there. And you can see one of the Anunnaki gods is standing on the bull, the cosmic bull here. Is this all just representation of the stars, or is it representation of the stars and the people that have specific titles and positions and connecting points? How far does it go? Well, I certainly feel there's something to this Stargate here. And if you look at this image right here, you can tell this is old school. You can also tell that it's got the Sumerian guardians. And then if you get into the Book of the Dead, this is an incredible passage that I want to share with you. It's one of the further spells. It's like spell 151A and 152, or you can call them chapter, rite, passage, hieroglyph. Let me read this to you real quick. Oh, rejoice, Seb, N. Now, when you see that N in italic, that is divine source. That is their representation of God from the information that I've been able to gather. Like the highest, the deity that doesn't have a name or a label like these other gods. It's been set in motion with this vital power he has given to men and gods, their creative strength. there is cheering. When it is seen that Sashate, I hope I'm saying that right, has come towards Seb, when Anubis has commanded to build a house on earth, the foundations of which be like On, and the circuit like Char-Abba. Let the God of the sanctuary be in the sanctuary. Now, let me take a time out here and go back to the N in italic. I don't see how Anubis would command the divine source of all. Maybe it's more of a fluid current, the N, like the power of God, the source of divine, not like the flow, the force, like the force. Maybe it's more in representation of the force, because I do not see anything commanding the divine providence of all. I mean, if anything, the divine providence would command everything else underneath it. So Anubis has commanded to N. Maybe that's more of like the Jedi fashion. Just in reference, if you watch Hollywood movies, if you watch some of those movies, you can reference the Force. Some people say use movies to reference. Some people say don't. It's easy for me because there's so many gems in there. So that's not the point. Let's just get back to this